Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Ayşe Süberkaş. 5 years ago, hundreds of thousands of people poured into the streets across Turkey to take back their democracy. When it was all over, the failed coup of July 15 left more than 250 people dead and thousands injured. Since then, Turkish courts have tried and convicted hundreds who were part of the conspiracy. But Ankara says its mastermind remains at large in the United States. Turkish officials have tried to extradite Fetullah Gulen for years and dismantle his global terror network known as Feto. But their successes have also seen hurdles. Our diplomatic correspondent Andrew Hopkins reports.
In July 2016, airstrikes targeted the Turkish parliament and presidential compound. Bridges over the Bosphorus in Istanbul were closed, and a team of commandos was sent to capture President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. 2 suspects, an advertising executive and computer engineer, were caught on camera inside a high-security airbase in Ankara, which had later emerged was the headquarters of the attempted coup. When it was all over, the president knew who was responsible.
Ama dinletemedim. Şimdi bugün bu darbe girişiminden sonra tekrar sesleniyorum. Diyorum ki Pensilvanya'daki bu zatı artık Türkiye'ye teslim edin.
That person is Fetullah Gulen, and he's lived in this US compound since 1999. 5 years ago, the US promised to investigate him if Turkey asked.
I'm sure that people will wonder about allegations of who may have instigated this and where support came from. The United States will obviously be supportive of any legitimate investigative efforts, and under due process and within the law, we will be completely supportive of efforts to assist the government of Turkey if they so request.
Extradition from the US is a lengthy process. The case is reviewed by the Departments of State and Justice. If there's enough evidence to suggest the accused could have committed the offence, it goes to court. If the case is approved there, the Secretary of State has the final say. But the defendant can also appeal. To date, there's been little progress. US officials have visited Turkey to discuss the matter, but Gulen still lives in Pennsylvania. Other suspects are believed to have fled to Europe. University professor Adil Öksüz, who was arrested on the night of the coup but later escaped, was reportedly spotted here in Berlin. Efforts to extradite Öksüz and other suspects haven't been successful, nor has asking EU countries to classify Feto as a terrorist group like the PKK.
Bei der Feto-Organisation nehmen wir die Hinweise der Türkei sehr ernst. Wir brauchen aber noch mehr Material. Das reicht noch nicht aus, um einen ähnlichen Status wie die PKK zu benennen. Und hierüber sind wir auch in Zukunft weiter miteinander im Gespräch. Und was konkrete Auslieferungsersuchen anbelangt, so werden sie von den jeweils zuständigen Stellen bearbeitet. Da gibt es einige Fälle, da wird auch in Deutschland gefahndet, aber wir haben in einigen Fällen auch noch keinen Erfolg gehabt und wissen auch nicht, ob bestimmte Personen sich überhaupt in Deutschland aufhalten.
By the start of this year, Turkey has requested the extradition of more than 800 suspects from 27 countries, 156 from the US, and 257 from the EU. Germany has received 77 requests. Turkey has also stepped up its campaign for Feto-linked schools and universities to be closed down, particularly in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, where the terror organization established itself after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Sometimes Turkey has carried out covert operations abroad to detain suspected Feto terrorists. The detention of Gulen's nephew Selahattin in Kenya in May caused some controversy, an operation President Erdogan apparently announced just days beforehand.
Yakında FETÖ takımından da önemli bir ismi açıklayacağız. Şu anda elimizde. FETÖ'den kimi yakaladık, hesaba çektik. Ne durumda onun açıklamasını da inşallah yapacağız.
With a new president in the White House, there's hope in Turkey that the case of Fetullah Gulen may be looked at again. However, Joe Biden was vice president at the time of the failed coup, and it may take a lot more convincing for him to take the matter forward. Andrew Hopkins, Straight Talk.
And to discuss where the country is 5 years on, joining me now from Muğla, Turkey, is Izzet Selim Yenel. He is the former Turkish ambassador to the EU. From Istanbul, Vehbi Baysan. He's a political analyst and assistant professor at İbn Haldun University. And from Istanbul, Matthew Bryza. He is former U.S. ambassador. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Vehbi, 5 years on from the coup attempt, where does Turkey stand in terms of its domestic politics and its relations with the world?
Well, it is a bitter experience, no doubt, which repeated itself every almost 10 years. In 1960, we had a military coup, 1971, another one, and then, you know, that political parties shut down and people really suffered as a result. And 1980, we had another one. So people were saying like a physical interference at least would have been something of the past. If we don't, of course, count in the 28th February interference to the political parties that the legitimate government had to be had to step down. So, I mean, in people's mind, we thought this traumatic experience would be the last thing. But yet, 5 years ago, with all its severity and seriousness, we experienced that actually some people had the same thing in mind, basically toppling a legitimate elected government and administration and take the power by force. So 5 years on, people still very, very tense, very sensitive, and they, I think, never wish to see that 15 July experience again. It's so traumatic, so disastrous. And, you know, over 250 people got killed,
yes,
and over 2,000 or 2,500 people got injured. And of course, that opened scars in people's heart and mind that you need decades probably will not be healed.
So, Selim, how has this coup attempt marked the turning point in Ankara's political compass as diplomatic relations began shifting?
Well, I mean, it was ironical because 4 months prior to the coup attempt, we had signed the 18th of March agreements based on migration, and which encompassed all aspects of our relations with the EU. Mm-hmm. And we thought that we would be able to, fly from there because it was going to be the customs union modernization, visa-free regime. Lots of things were going to be handled. Unfortunately, ever since the coup happened, things are just soured. And for the last 5 years, the relationship has gone from, bad to worse. And only now, in the last 6 months, have we been trying to correct that situation. So the coup attempt has really dramatically turned around the relationship we had with the EU. It's quite unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. But that the coup attempt did not hurt Turkey's deal on refugees with the European Union, did it?
No, it did, in fact. I mean, we delivered on our part, but the EU used as an excuse what has happened after the coup attempt, the fundamental human rights, et cetera, et cetera. There was a lot of criticism about what Turkey did with regard to the aftermath of the coup attempt, and used that as an excuse not to move ahead on the customs union, on the visa issues, on accession negotiations, on mostly everything except for the financial contribution that was going to go to the Syrians anyway.
Okay.
So unfortunately, it was an excuse for the EU not to deliver on its promises.
So Matthew, how has this coup attempt changed the direction of Turkey-U.S. relations 5 years on? And what was the initial reaction to this attempt? And why do you think it took several days for U.S. officials to make a statement about that?
Yeah, I've pondered that last question many times and found it to be absolutely inexcusable at the moment. So let me go back and answer your questions in reverse, maybe. I was startled when then Secretary of State John Kerry reacted, I guess it was on the Saturday, that weekend, Saturday or Sunday, and he said the coup attempt seemed poorly planned, as if he was suggesting either that it wasn't a real coup attempt, or that maybe he wished that the coup attempt could have been better planned. And then the head of the U.S. Central Command, so that's the branch of the U.S. military that operates in the Middle East, General Fetullah, he actually said that in the aftermath of the coup attempt that the United States had lost many of its partners in the Turkish military with which it had worked so well for many years. If you're sitting here in Turkey, that statement also sounds like a lamentation and a sense that the people who were responsible for trying to overthrow a democratically elected government, which, by the way, had garnered 52% of the vote just about 8.5 months before the coup attempt, should be overthrown. I have never, ever in my 23-year diplomatic career, in my academic life, before and after, ever heard any U.S. leaders advocate or sound like they're advocating for the military overthrow of a NATO member state's democratically elected government. So this created a deep, of course, sense of distrust of Ankara in the about the United States. Mm-hmm. But my last statement would be, I also think still in the United States, there's a deep misperception that this wasn't a real coup attempt and that somehow President Erdogan may have staged the whole thing so that he could attack his political opponents. And so, that misperception has really led to a deep rift in Turkey-U.S. relations, unfortunately, that is enduring.
So I understand someone among U.S. officials had hoped the coup had succeeded. So what does it stem from? I mean, animosity from the Turkish government or animosity towards the president?
It stems from longstanding animosity, I think, primarily toward President Erdogan in Washington. There's been a focus for years on, the plight of opposition figures and journalists, and a simplistic narrative has emerged in Washington about Turkey that goes along the lines of its democratic system is broken, mm-hmm. and it's not fixable. Now, subsequently, thank goodness, President Obama at the time did come out publicly and say we support the democratically elected government in Ankara. But as you asked in the beginning, Aisha, it's unforgivable and inexplicable that for so many days there was no such statement. In fact, it wasn't until the United Kingdom's Minister for Europe showed up in Ankara that anybody in the NATO space really expressed any relief that the coup failed.
Okay, so Vehbi, walk us through that day, what had happened on that day and how that coup attempt was put down, and what kind of network we are really talking about here.
Well, it was, I remember, very, very fresh in my mind. It was a terrible, terrible night. And what made it worse, I have a little daughter, when the warplanes were flying over Istanbul and creating sonic bombs, and we thought that actually we imagined the world's one of the biggest metropoles under the bomb explosions. We thought it's the bombs anyway. So I found her under blanket, shivering and hiding herself. I'm sure there are thousands and thousands of kids experienced the same thing. Mm-hmm. So what changed the kind of circumstances on the ground was the public reaction, as I tried to explain earlier, that we have a really bitter experience with military coups, and enough is enough. So that night, hundreds and thousands of people went into the streets, and many of them tried to save their democracies, save their country, and stood in front of tanks and tried to prevent this illegal action. So, and as a result, over 250 innocent people lost their lives and many injured. And as I said, that created a lot of scars. But what's important here is that it was a coordinated effort to topple the government. And it seems that long earlier that infiltrated in the system, and this system, they were so sure that everything was going to go in there according to plan, but probably they, lucky to us, that they kind of forgot the public reaction. What could that be? And that exactly happened. And since then, as I said, people really alert. People don't want to see anything like this after that, because a warplane bombed our parliament.
Yes.
I mean, it's not a joke. I think the world has to understand. Maybe it's difficult for them to understand because I don't think anywhere in Europe they never had such an experience, or in the US. So it seems Turkey is struggling to make its point. But I personally invite them to kind of at least have a little bit of a sympathy to this public, how they were terrorized that night. And I can't even imagine what could happen if they succeeded.
Yes,
Because
but fortunately,
that night was
we also know that fortunately that the coup officers did not have enough backing within the military. I mean, it was done outside the chain of command, so they didn't have enough resources, luckily, to make it work. So, Selim, we know that Turkey has been disappointed over the lack of support from its Western allies. How has the EU reacted to the July 15th events, and what was the mood aftermath this incident in European capitals?
Well, they reacted rather poorly because at the time when the coup attempt took place, all the EU leaders were in Asia. In fact, in Mongolia, there was the summit between the European Union and the Asian countries. And they didn't know what to make of it. They were surprised, they were taken aback, but they reacted very slowly. We expected much more support after the coup attempt had failed to prop up the government. In fact, that didn't happen. Like the US, they responded very late. They didn't understand the situation. In fact, the highest member that came to Turkey was the president of the European Parliament, Martin Schulz, who came more than 2 months after the coup attempt. And he was met by the president. I was there. We explained to him what really happened. He was surprised. But unfortunately, we expected much more support with regard to what happened in Turkey. This didn't happen, and this has caused a bitter taste in Turkey. And ever since then, there was this mistrust has just built up between the two sides.
So, Matthew, and if the coup attempt succeeded in creating chaos, as some had hoped, what effect it would have had on the NATO alliance, as well as the shared interests of the two countries? I'm talking about the United States and Turkey, because what would we likely to see in Turkey is, for example, border areas like Syria and Iraq?
Yeah, I think it would have been utter chaos in Turkey. I mean, that was one of the thoughts going through my mind while I was also with my young daughter trying to reassure her about those sonic booms as well. It dawned on me that the Feto organization is not capable of running the Turkish government. I mean, it's a cultish grouping devoted to one person. And so I think we would have seen just the disintegration of all systems of authority, and it would have wreaked havoc on the economy. You would have seen not just the Turkish lira dropping, but maybe the entire banking system freezing up. And then, as you said, Aisha, I mean, along Turkey's borders, who knows what sort of instability there would have been, but I would bet a lot of money that the ability of Turkey to continue hosting all those Syrian refugees in safe and humane conditions, that would have maybe melted away, and then who knows who would have been coming across the Turkish border. And in the meantime, I mean, it's impossible to predict what would have been the outcome, as you said, on Turkey's relations with NATO and other NATO member states. I mean, now I can say, my former colleagues in Washington, who are still my friends, they now do understand it was a real coup attempt. And so I no longer hear this questioning about whether it was fake. And so they would have come along as well and realized it's not a good thing if it had been, God forbid, that this terrorist organization took power. And so we would have had then, I think, really tense relations, even worse than they are now, between Washington and Ankara, and then between all NATO capitals and
So similar question for you, Selim. I mean, from a European Union perspective, how would that have affected the European Union, considering all the refugees inside Turkey next to its borders?
Well, I mean, of course, it's very difficult to say on what ifs. But I mean, my guess would have been that, this coup, if it was successful, it would have been a very short success, and it would have been overthrown very quickly. I don't think that they would have succeeded for a very long time. Anyway, I mean, I don't think there would have been much of a change in Turkey because we would have immediately gathered everything together again. But one thing I have to say is that the reaction of the EU towards Egypt was reminiscent in the respect that, Turkey was very upset when the EU did not criticize very harshly the successful coup in Egypt. And we always wondered, would that be the case in Turkey? If there was a coup in Turkey and that was successful, how would the EU react? And just like, Ambassador Bryza had mentioned, in the US, there was a lot of doubt about whether this was a real coup or not and what kind of, management has happened. And when I was debating with my EU partners in Brussels after the coup, they were also saying that, well, look, I mean, these guys, they were in cohorts with the government, they were inside. So is this really a coup? And how did you arrest so many people so quickly? So there was a lot of thinking, doubts about what really happened. And it took us time to really get the message across about what really happened. And of course, that takes time. It takes time. And that's why, we have suffered with regard to a mistrust on both sides.
Is Turkey understood now?
I think it's much better understood. I would agree with that, that it's better understood. But still, there's some lingering thoughts here and there for those who want to, of course, abuse the situation.
Okay, so maybe now that Turkey and the European Union have agreed on a positive agenda with Turkey de-escalating tensions in the Middle East and reaching some sort of an understanding in Libya, how do you see relations evolving now?
Yes, well, I'm optimistic. Obviously, EU still can play a positive role in the region as well as Turkey's relation with the rest of the world. However, Turkey is part of the region geographically, historically, and politically. So Turkey acted, look, in Syria, for example, acted in kind of de-escalating zones, creating de-escalation zones, as well as Turkey hosting biggest or highest number of refugees since 1950s in the world. No other country ever hosted that. But having said that, I should also give credit to Lebanon and Jordan, because when you compare their population, they're also hosting significant amount of people. However, Turkey acted, although despite sometimes really kind of unpleasant relations with the EU, hosted all these refugees and acted like a buffer zone. They didn't. Turkey didn't want this to be a serious crisis, refugee crisis in the EU. Tried to prevent that. So I'm very much hoping that EU would consider Turkey as a serious actor in the region, especially that now President Erdogan had a phone call with the Israeli counterpart. So that's, I think, a good development, because nothing is eternal, including bad relations. So, as I said, Turkey culturally and historically also can play contribute a lot in the economic and social development in the Middle East. So all these things need a little bit of a backing up rather than taking a stand against Turkey. Because Turkey today in northern Syria, but they're not there to occupy the land. They're trying to kind of minimize the humanitarian crisis in the area. So Turkey should be backed up, in my view.
So, Matthew, the current U.S. President, Joe Biden, was the vice president when the coup attempt took place. For Turkey, he was part of this initial slow response. How do you see relations moving forward? Is there any bad blood between the two countries? And do you believe that Turkey's possible airport mission in Afghanistan's capital, Kabul, help repair ties between the two?
Sure. Yeah, he was, of course, as vice president, he was part of the whole decision-making process that led to the disaster in Syria of the United States partnering with YPG terrorist organization. But, you know, if you look back at the immediate aftermath of the coup attempt in August, then Vice President Biden paid a visit to Ankara and made clear that the U.S. didn't want the coup to succeed. And he even said that the U.S. understands Turkey's concerns about the YPG and that the YPG will need to move east of the Euphrates River. Unfortunately, that didn't happen due to bureaucratic infighting. So Biden comes into office, or is in office, experienced. He knows Turkey well. He had a very constructive meeting with President Erdogan on the margins of the NATO summit a few weeks ago. The chemistry seemed to be quite good, and based on my own contacts in Washington and in Ankara, they got along. As one very senior official here in Turkey said to me, it was as if old friends were getting back together. But that said, the relationship is in a really bad situation. And in Washington, D.C., I mean, the brand, not Turkey the country, but the government, is a toxic brand.
Yes.
There are very serious problems still that are bouncing along, especially the S-400s. But yes, the cooperation between Turkey and NATO, or Turkey taking over security of Kabul International Airport, that is a very important place to begin the process of rebuilding a sense of strategic partnership in Turkey-U.S. relations.
All right, gentlemen, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining us on Straight Talk. And that's all for this edition of Straight Talk with me, Ayşe Süberker. If you've got any comments, follow us and tweet us at Straight Talk TRT. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, take care and goodbye.